Okay, in the whole world of modern music, there are very few stories as wild, as prolific, and honestly as polarizing as the one about Denise and Jesse Rosseau. I mean, these two built a massive media empire in what feels like the blink of an eye, but their partnership has also kicked up this huge storm of controversy. So yeah, let's get into it.
And really, at the core of their whole story, there's this one central question that's been all over the headlines and fan forums. Are we looking at a genuine, modern love story that's all about empowerment, or is this actually a very well-disguised cautionary tale about power and control?
To even begin to understand the controversy, you first have to get your head around the sheer amount of work they've put out. The Rossios didn't just show up on the music scene. They completely flooded it, building what a lot of people are calling a modern music dynasty at a speed that's, well, it's pretty much unheard of.
I mean, just look at this timeline. The pace is absolutely staggering. We're talking 8 different projects in less than 2 years. This kind of nonstop output meant they were always in the conversation, and every single release just added another piece to their complicated story.
And that story, it split into 2 very different sides almost immediately. So first, let's unpack the case for concern. How the quiet whispers turned into screaming headlines.
So much of the controversy really just comes down to one single number: 15. That's the age gap between them. She was 19 when they got married, he was in his mid-30s. And that one fact, it became the bedrock for a whole lot of public unease.
And that unease, well, it was then fueled by Denise's own words. This lyric right here from her debut album was like throwing gasoline on a fire. And this whole daddy thing, it wasn't just a one-off. It became this recurring and, for a lot of people, a really troubling theme.
You see this pattern pop up again and again across different albums. It just kept reinforcing this paternal, almost teacher-student kind of dynamic. When you hear lyrics like, "I'll do what you say, Papa," and see song titles like "Midnight Lessons," it paints a picture that, a lot of people found pretty unsettling. So this is where you get the 2 camps, right? On one side, you have these serious accusations of grooming, of control, of a major power imbalance. But on the other side, you have this defense built on the ideas of mentorship, a creative partnership, and ultimately, empowerment. Okay, so that's one side. Now let's flip it and look at the other side of the coin, the case for salvation. To really get their defense, you have to look past the lyrics and dig into their backstories. They frame their relationship not as one of control, but as a story of 2 survivors who basically found refuge in each other. And their backgrounds are absolutely central to this defense. You have Denise, who fled a super strict religious community at just 19. And then you have Jesse, who came up through this incredibly tough childhood in Chicago to become a total self-made success. Their narrative is that 2 people from completely different but equally difficult pasts found their salvation together. So according to their telling of the story, this partnership didn't hold Denise back. It's what let her loose. The timing lines up perfectly. Right when they get together is when you see this explosion of her artistic freedom and this really clear climb in her power within the industry. And you can see her path to power pretty clearly. I mean, she goes from just being a featured vocalist to being the songwriter on her debut, then a co-producer on multiple projects, and then finally, the sole producer on her own EP. Her supporters would argue, this is not the resume of someone being controlled, it's the resume of someone being empowered. Eventually, all the whispers and the online speculation just got so loud that Denise had no choice but to address the whole thing head-on, in her own words. And believe me, she did not hold back. In a huge Rolling Stone cover story, she was asked directly about the power dynamics in their relationship. And her answer just completely reframed the entire conversation. She didn't deny needing to be saved. She took that word and reclaimed it, arguing that Jesse had actually saved her from her controlling past. And she sharpened this point even more in another interview, making what she saw as a crucial distinction. For Denise, this wasn't about being possessed. It was about being protected. It was about creating a safe space where she could finally, for the first time, find her own voice. But here's the really interesting part. The Rossios didn't just tell everyone this story of salvation and protection. They started to live it out loud.
and they turned their personal narrative into the very foundation of this huge, sprawling multimedia brand.
And what an empire it is. I mean, we're talking way beyond the music. There's a record label, a jazz group, and multiple TV projects, including a food series. They very strategically built this entire world where every single piece of content they put out reinforces their version of the story.
Their reality show is a perfect example of this. It's a masterclass, really. You see these moments, like Jesse vowing to rescue her from some chaotic goat yoga. And these aren't just supposed to be funny little clips. They're packaged perfectly to reinforce his role as the protector and to show off their playful dynamic.
You see how it all fits together, right? It's like this perfectly designed ecosystem. The music tells the story, the TV shows you the story, and then their philanthropy gives that story a sense of purpose. It's this self-reinforcing loop where every little piece, right down to their nicknames for each other, shores up their love story. So, after all that, what's the big takeaway here? Well, the Rossios were staring down a controversy that could have ended their careers. But instead of running away from it, they leaned all the way in. And by doing that, they took complete and total control of their own story.
This one quote from a profile on them just hits the nail on the head. It perfectly sums up their strategy. You know, in a world that might have wanted to see a story of a woman hurting to prove her victimhood, Denise chose to tell a story about blooming instead, a narrative of empowerment, but completely on her own terms.
And the wild thing is, it worked. It absolutely worked. By facing the scandal head on, by telling their story over and over again through their art, their shows, their interviews, they changed themselves from being the subjects of gossip into being the main storytellers. They didn't just survive the narrative, they rewrote it.
And all of this leaves us with one last, really fascinating question. The Rossausos were masters at crafting their public image, but it really makes you think about fame itself, doesn't it? In a world where every single detail of your life is up for grabs, where exactly is the line between someone's private truth and the public narrative that all of us are invited to watch?